So the title for today's podcast is Not All Superheroes Wear Capes. The reason being it's with my good friend who I've spoke about on pretty much every podcast or opportunity I've had over the last few years. I call him the brain man Brian. And I'm going to let him tell his story, but he's the reason, or a big reason why I'm actually doing this podcast, because obviously he shared information with me in the past which has helped me become the person I am today, and has kind of put me on a mission to do the same thing. So without wasting any more time, Brian, welcome to the 3% podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here. You've been asking me for a while, like it's not something I normally...
Yeah, well, to be honest, I've had a load of messages off podcasts where I've mentioned you in the past. People sending me little messages saying, anywhere I can get Brian, where is he? But you're not actually on no social media or anything, are you? Which we're gonna sort that out.
I'm not like...
But I've had a ton of messages, even like, obviously since I've started my own podcast, I get little requests, people asking, you know, can you get him on, but probably the most popular person I've been asked to bring on is yourself, so nice to have you on here, mate. So where did it all start? I'll let you tell your story.
Where did I start doing this work? Probably, well, actually, from when I was about 16, 17 years of age, and I suffered with depression. Didn't know what it was at the time. It was just dark, and you look at people around you and that, and you think to yourself, are they feeling that way, you know? Is it normal? Will it go away? How long will it last? All them sorts of questions. And I always say to you when we compare, like, because I'm older than most of the people I'm around, a lot of young people opening up, going on journeys, becoming enlightened. Back then it was really difficult to speak to anyone, really, so I ignored it for a bit and thought that'll go soon. I asked other people about it close to me and they go, don't really know what you're on about, and so that like makes you feel a bit more different. When I say different, like, you know, you're trying to connect with someone who feels the same way, and probably around that time when I was 16, most people wouldn't talk about it then anyway. It wasn't something you openly discuss. To me, I'm not bothered, I'll speak about it. But flipping over to a positive, it took me on a journey where I thought I need to find out what it is, so I started reading, educating myself. Took some tablets for a while that the doctor recommended, but just dulled me down to where I just had no senses whatsoever. I was just in between, but not in a good way. You couldn't feel nothing nice.
Like desensitised?
Yeah. So I thought, I'm not going to do this, and I thought I'm gonna look, really study whatever way I could at the time. And I always remember I got a book in 1983, 84 called Out on a Limb by Hollywood actress Shirley MacLaine, and she'd gone on this journey of enlightenment, and she wrote a absolutely superb book and explained where it started, how she felt, and it was quite similar, and it was the first thing I related to, and I thought, you know, this is someone who started off being in a similar place, and even though she was successful in a job and you know, she really famous, still alive and healthy. I think she's 80 odd years of age now, but the book Out on a Limb was fascinating, and it sort of got me really, really curious. I'd never heard people speak openly about you know, the esoteric world and seeing different things and really looking into who we are as human beings. And that was the first book in 1983. It was written. Someone actually gave it to me. I can't remember who. And that sort of took me on a journey to where I am now. I started, like, many years later, I dipped into quantum science. I still do. Sounds a bit far out, but as you know, we speak to quantum scientists. And,
how did that come about? How did you end up speaking? So just explain a little bit about what quantum physics is for a start, and obviously
2006, something like that.
But what is quantum physics? So how would you describe it to, like, anyone watching?
Quantum physics is just a different science to the sciences that we normally know. It's really out of the ordinary. Even now, quantum scientists will say the more you look into it, the stranger it gets. But I realised that we have like a quantum mind. So the quantum mind's more related to your subconscious mind, and it's a science where you dip into it. Really, the only way you can connect it with it is outside of the ordinary.
Yeah.
You know,
I call it energy science. That's probably the best way for me to explain it to people, where probably the science we learn in school is based on what we knew hundreds of years ago, where obviously quantum science is like the most up-to-date. It's like where most technology and things come from now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. And some of the things that you've seen us doing and you've experienced, like the tapping, that they call that energy psychology. It's a psychology beyond that. A lot of people don't even recognise it. Or
would you say that's the link then between the mind and obviously the science?
Yeah, the quantum, like in the quantum world, the quantum mind. You know, there's many different experiments. I remember watching an experiment replicated that I was fascinated with, called a creative observer, and everyone says they can manifest, and they can. Well, a lot of people manifest things that they don't want because they don't truly know what they want, but there's a lot of people now really good at it, and they'll get things really fast, and after a bit they'll go, that didn't really solve what I wanted it to, it hasn't ticked that box. But with the creative observer experiment, I was fascinated because it's in a room like the size of this, and they'll fire like lasers and stuff from all different angles, and they'll show you subatomic particles floating about. So that's the quantum world.
That's what everything's made of, isn't it?
Yeah. And when you say, I am, like you do, like the I am project. And these subatomic particles recognise who you are as the creator. So, you know, without being religious, we're all God sort of thing, and we can all create. So when you concentrate on them subatomic particles in the experiment, they start dropping into like a glass tank, and they become like solid. Yeah, like the first stages of matter look like jelly. And Peter, who's the head scientist at a company called Quantac that I've been speaking to for years, he says in that moment, these are the very building blocks of everything you know, and they're recognising you as the creator. They're basically saying, what you want me to be, I recognise you. So we're in like duality then, we're sort of like, you're connected to matter. Yeah. You're connected to everything, and that's how people manifest every day, but that's how it's related to quantum science too. That's just one of many experiments that they do, where you can literally change things just by observing them. You know, there's a school of thought that says nothing exists unless we observe it anyway. We create it.
It all starts in our imagination, doesn't it? That's like, because obviously the work I do with the kids, I've had to kind of learn how to explain this in a way where you understand it. But basically what you're saying is we create everything ourselves through human imagination. Yeah,
and kids love it. You know, I never studied science when I was at school. I was in science classes, but whether or not it was taught in the right way or I just wasn't engaged with it, it wasn't something that I was into. Or
if I compare a lot of the science what I learned when I was in school, because I did actually enjoy science. I didn't do great in school, I'm the first to admit it, but I did actually enjoy and take something from the science lessons. It is something I've always enjoyed, but when I compare it to the stuff what we know now, and through obviously the bits of quantum physics and things what I've studied and what you've put me onto, it's like there's a lot of it debunks a lot of the science what you actually learn in school, because it's based on information which they knew, maybe 100 years ago, 200 years ago.
And all these scientists were out there, and for whatever reason, we weren't meant to connect with them. Maybe it wasn't the right time. Maybe we were.
Would you say technology, like mobile phones, the internet, are obviously playing a big part in that now, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely, because people can connect and people can converse more, and compare what they're doing and what they feel and what's working, and also there's all that information out there. If you
can't, it's hard to suppress, basically, isn't it?
And I remember someone saying to me once that it was a scientist that, potential is a wave. As soon as you concentrate on the wave, you collapse that wave, it becomes matter, it becomes a particle. And I thought, that is literally what we're doing. And a lot of the time, like I say, we're manifesting things that we don't need.
I have a thing with the kids, because I've kind of got good at explaining it to kids, but I say to my kids, everything we can see, which doesn't grow to the earth, is created through someone's imagined it before it's existed. So it's exactly basically what you're saying, is we manifest and create everything through our imagination, what we believe to be there. Yeah. Essentially, isn't it? That's like, And
when you explain it like that, kids understand it straight away, and they want to know more. And I find it like a fascinating subject. And the thing is, like I say, you never get to the end. So like I could have learned something last week, and I'll go, wow, I didn't know that, you know what I mean? I thought, I don't say I know everything, think I know everything, but when you learn something new again, you go, wow, because we've been practicing this mind room thing where we do like the alpha mind, where you can go into your alpha mind, you can connect with the collective consciousness, and you can bring things through the collective consciousness, drops down into your conscious mind, and then it spills out as reality.
Yeah.
So you can literally go, when you practice it enough, you can literally go in there, ask for things, or speak to anyone who's ever lived, even if they've passed. You know, they still exist in science. It says that to us in the collective consciousness, and you can speak to anyone from the past, present, or future and ask a question on something, and you'll get an answer.
And again, that's not. Well, it is spirituality in a sense, because for me, it's science and spirituality now, but basically the same.
Yeah.
The science to back spirituality, and the two things merge. I used to, I used to kind of feel uncomfortable saying I was spiritual because I related personally to religion, and I'm not religious.
Yeah.
So that's where I used to feel that, like, I didn't feel at ease saying I was spiritual, but it's actually studying the science, isn't it? What would you say, you're spiritual?
No, but when I learned that, the more and more science I learned, I noticed that more and more people would listen to you because it's not as taboo. And, but I believe we're at a stage now where science and spirituality have always met each other, where they both explain each other, you know, the science.
Yeah, well, I like to laugh and say I'm scientifically spiritual.
Yeah.
So it's studying the science which has led me to become spiritual. But when I speak about spirituality, I just mean as in the energy. You know, you always say what you taught me is the first conversation we ever had is everything's energy. Yeah. So I obviously know that when we go, the human, you can explain this better than me. Obviously, when the body's gone, the energy's still there. Some people call it the spirit, don't they? Or religion and things like that.
It's just moved to another dimension.
The energy doesn't die, does it? The body, the physical body dies, but the energy doesn't.
And even science says now that the physical body can even be recreated because that's just a frequency. And even if you destroyed it.
So when you say a frequency, how would you explain?
Well, we're all resonating at a certain frequency, but so is everything else in the universe, do you know what I mean? The only reason we can sit on these chairs is because we accept that it's possible, so that's how powerful we are as human beings, because in the laws of science, we should just fall through the floor, because we're not
solid.
No, but the chair isn't solid, it's vibrating all the time. Every little particle is moving, nothing rests. Nothing's ever still in the universe. That's our world, you know what I mean? There's an amazing book. Well, it's a whole study called The Kabbalion. The Kabbalion explains a lot of this.
That's ancient, isn't it? The Kabbalion?
It's ancient. It's only a little book. But there's a chapter on the 7 principles, as we speak, about things all the time. Everything's sevens. And in one of the principles of the Kabbalion is nothing rests. Everything moves, and that's like explained science, but that's like Kabbalion's a kind of spirituality, but it's also like a science. I
used to feel that uncomfortable, Brian, when people say over like spiritual. I imagined or related it, as I say, to like religions, or even like, I used to say like hippies and all these things, but it's actually like, I got asked a question yesterday, and it was like a lot of people presume that I've used like DMT or mushrooms or these these plant plant medicines because of the way my beliefs have changed and a lot of things like that. But it's actually been through the stuff what we study, which is actually, I've never experimented with any plant-based medicines. So for anyone who messages me on Instagram asking me where to get mushrooms, and like loads of the lads like send me random messages saying, where can I get I know where I could go and do an ayahuasca ceremony or go and do this, and I'm like, I haven't got a clue. Why'd you presume that I'd actually know? It's like studying the books and things like that would have led me to change the way of thinking.
And you know what, that can be really dangerous, because I remember reading in a scientific book that when they've done studies on all them type of mushrooms and ayahuasca and stuff like that, they do open you up spiritually, obviously, and they do certain things, but unless you know where something's come from, meaning that you grew it and watered it every day, and like a shaman will say that you literally need to tend to that every day. If you're going to take it, it's got to be yours 100%, because otherwise you just don't know what it is. Yeah. And it's a frequency again. Everything's a frequency, even in plants.
So you can download a bad frequency, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, you can take a bad frequency into yourself and then you know, on the darker side of it exists. I've had, you know, many experiences where something's entered my frequency because there's dark stuff out there, and it affects you in different ways, where you'll be out of character, or, you know, you'll say things that you don't really mean, or you'll do, and you see people go, don't know what come over me. But that's the type of where you've got to be really careful what you take, even like alcohol.
Yeah.
You know, I used to drink years ago, but I don't drink anymore because I don't trust anything in my system. Because you're literally open, and if you take something and you open yourself up even more, anything that's out there can just jump in and go, I can use this as a vessel for what I want.
Yeah.
So it gets really deep, but I think it's weird, like, pointing things like that out, so I've experienced it, and I know that, you know, people can do violent things, and it's not really, it sounds far out, it's not really them, people say it's a red mist, but it's that type of thing. Yeah. That's why when you're practicing this work and you're aware of it, you've got to be aware of all aspects of it. And we were speaking about the other day, you and I, about self-sovereignty. And it is like that, keeping your own...
Mastering yourself, taking your power back.
But also keeping yourself, like, closed.
Protecting yourself.
Because, you know, depression, we go back to that can be a type of frequency where if you spend time with people who are down, even if you're quite a, high-spirited person, you can, start to drop. I've worked with many people. It's the most rewarding thing I've ever done, is help people who are depressed and help them get over it. And I know, because I say I'm an emphasis, because I've been there and got the t-shirt, so I know how they feel. I'm very compassionate about it, and I have empathy for them people. And I know that when I've seen a lot of people on the bounce, and I don't go out looking for people, there's plenty of people out there that'll find you when the time's right. I never really say no to anyone, but there's times when you've really drained yourself, where you have to chop yourself up again, because you have been in that energy, especially if people have, been abused and other stuff like that, where there's reason for the depression, like, where it's more logical why they're like that. They can be carrying all these frequencies that are quite low, and then what I learned years ago is you've literally got to lift your own up again, otherwise you just keep sinking.
Recharge yourself.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to say no, because you know how it feels, but also you can only do so much, because you're like a tuning fork yourself, and you need to get up to that frequency again where you can help them.
Yeah. But I know personally I've had a handful of people who've reached out to me to get in touch with you, to basically say, can you go and, they've had a family member or somebody they care about, and like that was the reason behind the title for the podcast, Not All Superheroes Wear Capes, is because I think that one of the most amazing things you can ever do is save someone's life. And I know sitting here, maybe no one really knows apart from you and the people who you've helped, but you genuinely save people's lives, haven't you, just through helping them based on what you've learned off the back of your own experiences. So which is just one of the most amazing, powerful things
and like
you could ever do.
We got into sport for a bit, and I know you want to ask about that and how we got into sport and stuff, but sport was like, for me, and entertainment, any that type of stuff was like lightness, light-hearted, and but if you compare it to like helping someone who's suicidal, who's really depressed, you can't compare it. It's not about getting a reward, but the feeling you get from doing that, nothing else compares to that, you know what I mean? So when I had a little dip into sport, it sort of give me a break for a bit. I'm still seeing people, but it was a bit of fun in that, and people could just win or lose. And
when you just answered one of the questions, because I was going to ask you what made you want to work with athletes or fighters in particular.
And I didn't. I just, like everything in life, it just was organic, where it just presented itself, and you're in a certain place at a certain time and speak to someone and you go...
Was it Paul Kelly who brought you into Cowboy? It was like about 11 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably a bit more.
A bit longer.
Yeah, Paul was ahead of his time. He's a proper mind man, I'd call him,
well, Paul's mental. Paul won't mind me saying he's mental. Paul probably admits himself he's mental, but a funny story which you know about anyways, when we were in Abu Dhabi, was him and Terry Etten both fighting on the same card, and I think Paul was like a bit of an underdog. He was fighting a tough American called Matt Veach, and he was from Matt Hughes' camp, big strong lightweight. And I remember we went over there probably a couple of weeks before just to acclimatise and get ready. Obviously I was brand new to it, I didn't understand anything to do with the mind at that point. I was still fighting and coaching myself, but didn't understand anything to do with the mind. Couldn't control my own mind. And I remember we had a guy there, Callum, a cracking fella from Scotland but lived over there, and he had a Jeep, so we'd be travelling from the training facilities back to his house. We were staying at his house, and every time we'd be making the journey, you'd obviously give Paul some work to do, and Paul would be in the back of it. We'd be in this 6-7 seater bus, but there'd be about 8 of us crammed into the back of it. Me, Colin, Terry, Paul, Paul Taylor, like a proper firm of us in the back of this car. And Paul used to feel that was like the best place to do his visualization, which we'll go on to in a minute. But he'd literally be in the back of the car, twitching, throwing punches, and snot coming out of his nose, beads of sweat all over his forehead. He'd be in a fight, and we thought he was absolutely insane. We'd be laughing at him, and he'd be that much in the fight, in his mind. He wouldn't pay any attention to us whatsoever, but we thought he was absolutely crazy. And it's only like now we'll laugh up. I'll have the conversation with Paul, and like, out of all the things I've ever seen you do, which you're nuts, that was probably the craziest. But now it's like a totally egg on my face, because it's something I've done myself, and something, in different areas of my life, and something I practice daily is visualization, and it's just something I didn't understand at the time. But that was through you, wasn't it, basically?
Yeah, and to be fair to Paul, like he was already deeply into the mind stuff before I spoke to him. That's why when I spoke to him, he engaged with me straight away, because
he's open, isn't he, Paul?
A lot of people will just go, what's he on about? Or they'll just swerve you a little bit.
Hey, Gary.
Yeah, but he was ahead of his time, like Paul. If he was being like a few years later, and he'd learnt more and more and more. He used to say to me that if he was on his back or anything, he'd say, I'm going to count to 3, and when I get to 3, I'm getting up no matter what. Well, that's like literally just programming yourself. Yeah. And nothing else is going to happen by that. Yeah. And then, you're just speaking to yourself, basically, and you will muster whatever it takes.
Paul was like a master at doing the wrong things, technically, but making them work. He had like his own game. And I remember being in the changes, warming up for his fight. He'd done all his visualization. Like, we knew his strengths and we knew his weaknesses, and we used some of his weaknesses in that fight to basically capitalise on his opponent's style. His opponent was a wrestler. Yeah. And we knew odds are Paul was going to get taken down. So Paul was the only person we remember being in the change rooms, me, Colin, Paul, probably Terry and the rest of us, drilling and doing the drills what Colin would give us for like the specifics for the fight, which involved giving up your back. And obviously everyone knows in MMA, the last thing you do is give up your back. But part of Paul's game plan was was when he got sucked down, which we knew was probably 99.9% chance it was going to happen, was giving his back, reversing his opponent, and then finishing him from being on top. And we knew that was probably the only way Paul had managed to get in. Yeah. Maybe his strongest position, you could have said, because his ground and pound was really good. And he absolutely pulled it off, but he'd visualised and practiced that he'd done it in the back of the car with 6-7 other people. Yeah. To have the ability to do that, like I find it hard concentrating and focusing sometimes when you're on your own, but to do it, it is he's definitely got something there. Do you know what I mean?
Some people just naturally have it, or maybe had the curiosity. Years before he was even fighting, I would say he probably did.
Was you curious when you obviously you said you fell into depression and stuff at an early age, but did you ever have any type of thoughts, or was you? So I know we spoke of me, I was very curious when I was little. I remember spending a lot of time on my own. And
I had always see things, and I didn't know what they were. That's like a taboo subject to talk about, because people are going, what you're on about? But I'd always see, I'd see the colours on the carpet moving when I was a kid, or I'd see the wallpaper moving and that, and I used to think, what's that? And that, but we're literally in the lower brain frequencies. Because, kids are in Delta for quite a few years from when they're born. So about 3 or 4 or something. So do you want
to explain? Obviously you've got the different brain frequencies.
Yeah, we have 4 brain frequencies, main brain frequencies that we use. We're in beta now. We're talking, we're in
busy.
Alert, yeah.
A busy mind.
We're thinking that did I park the car up, or did I pay for it parking, or whatever, all that type of rational things. And then we come into alpha, which is like the gateway, they call it, to the subconscious mind. So it's a slightly higher frequency. So you're coming from like 4 to 7. It's delta. And you go from 7 to about, I think it's about 15, alpha. So you're sort of in like pure potential, and when you're in alpha, you'll start getting ideas and that coming to your head.
You get out your own way when you're in alpha.
Yeah, you're literally, and then theta is pure subconscious, moving up the hertz again, and you eventually end up...
Theta's like hypnosis, isn't it?
Yeah, hypnosis, yeah. And then where you should be really between alpha and theta is where you'll do all your mental imagery and that, if you're doing it for sport or whatever. And then delta is deep sleep. And in deep sleep, we can do anything anyway. And when people get ideas, they'll come up with something, or they'll be meditating and they'll get an idea. That's why, like, when you get it in sleep and you're in delta, you should keep a pen and pad by the bed, because when you're fully awake and you come out of alpha and back into beta, you can't remember what it was, because you're out of them frequencies and you can't really go back there. So that's where you're at in hypnosis, and that's where you're at when you really know how to do visualization and manifestation. Like you mentioned Paul, he was great at it, and I've tried to teach people like in sport, mental imagery and visualization, and that. They do it to a degree, but they don't follow through with it or do it.
Yeah, I would say they do it to the degree in what they believe in it.
Yeah,
probably a good.
Yeah, and I've been. When we had a meeting with people last week, I touched on Alex Honnold, and he's like a brilliant example of mental imagery, because most people do it and it doesn't really mean anything. If it's in sport, you might get beat. If it's something you want, you mightn't get it to a later date. So it's not life and death. But Alex Honnold, his videos on YouTube, one of them, many of them, he's been on TED Talks and all that type of stuff. He climbed a mountain, El Capitan, in America, and it was like vertical, most of it. Some of it was leaning out towards him. And he actually bought a caravan and put it at the bottom of the mountain. He'd climb it day after day after day. I don't know how many times. At least 100 times, I'd say. I don't know. And he was big on mental imagery, as well as remembering everything. He had like a photographic mind, and he had to remember every little nook and cranny that he got his hands and fingers in and feet. Climbing with the ropes didn't really matter, because we fell off. He was on his ropes. But it was called Free Solo, the video on YouTube. He wanted to climb it with no ropes or nothing. His girlfriend, who's still with now, saying, you're absolutely crazy. But she backed him because she loved him, and she knew that he was just possessed to do this. And what he was saying on that video and a few other ones I've seen since is that I had to see it going perfect. And he knew that if he seen it going perfect, it was reality, because he understood the subconscious mind, and he knew that if he imprinted on it, it not only imprints in your subconscious mind, it's in your whole body. So his body will react right down to the last little sinew in his fingers, will be under his control, because he's seen it and seen it and seen it. So everything's under his control, and he knew that if he got it right, he had nothing to fear. And he done it. He climbed that mountain, and he knew, there was no way that he wasn't going to do it, but there was still that little element of danger, and, every human being will still get that. Doesn't matter how small it was, but he still had to overcome that. And I compared that to people that are trying to give that to, and they didn't do it like him. Yeah. I'm saying you've got to do it like him, and it'll work. If you do it like him, it will work. If there's a one-on-one sport, and you get right to the top of that sport, and there's nothing between you, your coaches are similar talents, and you're similar talents, and your fitness is similar, and everything. There's only
it's
the margins are minute. And people say to me, "Who's winning that fight between them two top fighters, or between these two top golfers who end up right at the end?" I said, "The one who sees it and believes in it more. The narrative. If you get the narrative right and you truly believe in it, there's nothing that can get in your way." But Alex Honnold was the master of that, and still is. He's still active. And I'd say to people, have you done your visualisation? Because I do it based on a certain number. So from NASA, I got it, that if you've done something for 7 days, it start becoming a whole brain and body belief. Maximum of 21. So you do it from 7 to 21. So if I give someone a mental imagery sequence, or I'd say, you know, do your mental rehearsal, whatever you want to call it, visualisation, at the time you're going to be performing, because that's your peak. So if you're training for 8 weeks and you want to be at your peak at 10 o'clock at night, you've got to do your mental rehearsal at 10 o'clock at night, because it's all science. So I'd ask them to do that, and also ask them not to have a break in it, because it's really important. Because when astronauts used to go into space, some of them would see upside down for a period of time when they came back. So NASA made them special goggles to revert the sight. And in their studies, because they study any science, because that's what they were, they discovered that it took a minimum of 7 and a maximum of 21 for the sight to revert back to normal. So they knew that for a new belief to say, that's okay, that's the way I'm supposed to see, it would take that period of time. So I took that and stuck it together with the visualisation and mental rehearsal, and gone do it for 7. I'd ask people to do it for 21, but I knew that they wouldn't. They'd get a break in it, because, you know, they'd get that inertia that everyone gets, and stop and start, and there'd be a gap. So I thought, go for a minimum of 7. You ask someone like Alex Honnold to do it for 21, he'd do it. And that's the difference, because he knew that if he got it wrong, he was dead.
Yeah.
So that's the motivator. But there's still no reason that you can't do it like that.
Yeah.
With that sort of dedication. If you know it's going to work, you do it, wouldn't you?
That's it, the degree in what you believe.
Yeah.
It actually works. But not everyone's life depends on whether they win
or and not everyone.
They win or lose, or may even make a mistake, does it?
No, and not everyone that buys into it that much. A lot of people pay your lip service and go, I'll do that.
I think a lot of people are starting to become a lot more open to it now, aren't they? We've obviously noticed a massive shift in people's beliefs over the...
In like the UFC, the likes of John Jones, and he's been massively into the mind stuff for a while, and, you know, he would go and meditate on the top of mountains and do his visualisation there and stuff, and that was quite a few years ago now. And then these other...
Yeah, Adesanya's quite big on it as well now. He speaks openly about, like, basically, you know, visualisation and manifesting, you know, his victories and things like that.
Every time I've said something, I said, I'm the UFC middleweight champion from my UFC debut. You just don't know it yet. I did that from my UFC debut, and I did. Before my UFC debut, I said I was going to fight Robert Whittaker for this belt in 2019, and I did. I said I'm going to beat John Jones, 2021, Raiders Stadium, International Fight Week, and I will. Every single time I say something, I always find a way. There's a method to my madness. I put it out there in front of the world, so that way I do everything in my power. My subconscious does everything in its power to make it happen. If not, then I have to eat my words, and I don't like doing that, you know? So I make them eat their words every single time.
Conor McGregor's another one, isn't he? He's obviously really open about, like, you know, basically speaking his existence into reality. Yeah. Imagining scenarios like the Jose Aldo fight. You actually see videos of him rehearsing the sequence.
I mean, that's just the way it is. It's 24/7 in my head. I always think about it. I'm always doing. I don't do anything else. And knowing that I have that kind of mentality about it, that's what gives me confidence going in there. You know, I've already visualised what's ahead of me here. I've already visualised my hands getting wrapped and what maybe walking out to the weigh-ins, walking out to the cage. I can see everything. I can see. Of course, I visualise the belt, man. That belt is on me up 24/7. You know what I mean? I'm not going in there to shake no one's hand. I'm not going in there to be the token Irish guy. You know what I mean? Wear a paddy hat and a pot of gold. You know what I mean? Carry out a pot of gold and have a ginger beard or something. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm just going out there. I'm going out there to go at people. I'm not afraid of them. Trust me. No. What do you think I'm afraid of, like? Man, I would fight that guy in a heartbeat. I would fight anytime in a heartbeat. I will go forward and I will go at them. You know what I mean? It's a fight at the end. It doesn't matter who. There is no opponent. There's no Jose Aldo. Who the f is Jose Aldo? There's no one. You're against yourself. You know what I mean? You're against yourself.
What he finishes the fight with, but he said, I've seen it in my mind, and all that type of stuff. So again, it's like when I was fine, when you didn't have, obviously there was YouTube, but it wasn't like it is now in the sense the way information travels and you can get all these videos. And even like, I know when I was fighting, you probably came at the perfect time for me, but I do know of you that came earlier on and taught me some of the stuff, or led me into studying some of the stuff that I've studied at about it, the missing link for me. So obviously I would say I was physically a good athlete and I was technically very good at training and with amazing people all over the world. I know where my level was, but I didn't understand my mind, and that was basically, as far as fighting's concerned, I could say that was my downfall or my weakness.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have this stigma where we feel uncomfortable talking about in a gym full of alphas. Like, the last thing you want to do is say, lads, I'm feeling a bit of anxiety and a bit worried before this fight. So I definitely, but at the same time, since obviously I've met you, even like, I remember going to Brazil, didn't I? And I think I came to you and said, my main worry is I had a break, I'd retired, had a couple of years out and got an opportunity to go over there to fight. And I think my main worry, because I'd had so much sickness through my career, was actually getting sick, because all my fights through coaching and going away to train and even getting sick and injuries, I always felt like there was big breaks in between. And I had like a bit of a fear over, I had an opportunity to go to Brazil and fight twice in 4 weeks. So the first thing I done is came to you. We hadn't been in the gym that long. We'd only had a couple of conversations. But say, Brian, I'm worried that I'm going to get sick. In the time, I've got 2 fights. I've never had 2 fights that close together. And I always get sick either the week before or immediately after a fight. So I might get the first fight in, but I'm worried I won't make the second fight because I'll get sick. And I remember you saying, well, that's the problem. You're expecting to get sick. Basically, stop expecting to get sick. And you give me a list of affirmations and some tapping techniques to do.
Yeah.
And I've been riddled with different illnesses, like basically a lot around my chest, because I've had asthma my whole life, and that was my main worry, was always over like chest infections, and I created a lot of them myself through basically worrying and predicting when I'd get them. So you give me different techniques to reverse it, and they were all based around me affirming, looking in the mirror. I remember when you first told me to do these things, thinking this is fucking absolutely nuts, but at the same time having the belief in the stuff what you were teaching me and telling me. And I can openly say I've always been open-minded and I love fighting, so I try anything which is going to help me become better at the time. So I remember going to Brazil, and every day, obviously I've gone there, I've been looking in the mirror, tap me
K27.
Yeah, K27s, and looking at myself in the mirror saying, your immune system's impregnable, you never get sick, I'm fit, strong, I'm healthy. And I'm just repeating all these different affirmations to myself in the mirror, and at first he felt dead uncomfortable, but over a couple of days I got used to them. And like, it was safe to say, I ended up staying there for 5 weeks, fighting 3 times, was run down, overtrained, I don't even know, virtually nothing to make the weight while I was there. So really I should have, based on like prior to that and my experiences through fighting, I should have got sick, like really sick, and I never, as I say, I fought 3 times. Came home, got on the flight, and it's literally as soon as I landed back in Manchester, I was like, I can get sick now. And a week later, I was in hospital with a severe chest infection on antibiotics, and it hit me then. It weren't when I was there that it actually hit me.
Yeah.
It was when I came home and I was in a hospital bed, getting pumped full of antibiotics. I was like, no way, I've just actually created that. I've just accepted and stopped doing all my affirmations and everything while I was away, and was like, accepted the fact that I'm okay to get sick now, and became sick. And like, it's funny because the lesson I got from that, I say to you, I haven't been in the doctors don't even know me, I don't get sick, I haven't been sick since, and I passed that down to my kids through the stuff what I know now. And like, I've got 2 kids who never ever they don't even believe in it. There was no conversation over sickness or anything in our house. So
do you know what the time of year it is now? People do the same now. They'll go to Christmas, so can't get sick, but they won't. But then as soon as it's over,
they'll get sick.
Get all kinds, because they've let that energy go then, but you can do it all the time. Well, you literally are an expression of everything that you impress on yourself.
Yeah, when you say impress on yourself, you mean like
all your thoughts, all the
your
things
beliefs
that you do, all the people you're around, you just impress on you. I mean, you had a card off me, I didn't know you still had it from about 12 years ago. And on the back it says today's impressions are tomorrow's expressions, and it's like that. You literally express.
what we download from our environment.
Yeah, all the things that are around us.
Which is lovely. You touched on something before, you didn't really go into it, but we've been doing some work in some prisons, haven't we, with
Yeah.
good friend of ours, Gary, and
Yeah.
obviously Tony Bellu's been coming in, doing a bit of work and supporting us, and
Yeah.
that's been going well, hasn't it?
Yeah, and we talk about the trap, and it's a bit of a, might be uncomfortable if you say things to do. It's like a bit of drama and theatre, really, because you've got to get right into it and express yourself. But we've seen them doing it in there a few
And when
times.
you say tapping, do you want to explain?
Yeah, the EFT, it's like, it's called, a lot of people will be familiar with it now, it wasn't years ago, the emotional freedom technique. You basically like on a dial up into your own emotional body. Things that happen to us from when we're kids and right through our lives, really, are imprinted on us, so we carry them around with us, in the energy body. So by doing this tapping and using certain affirmations what are tailored to exactly what the problem is with the person, they'll release that energy and you don't have to have it no more. You see it shift and you can feel it shift. We had like powerful examples last week of what happened when we were in there, and like, if people don't want to, if they're too uncomfortable to relive it or they don't really want to go there, you're that clever as a human being, you'll offer it up in shapes, colours, and even any of the 5 senses. The most common ones are like the shapes, and it's funny that shapes that we were saying the other day, someone come up with it and it's like spiky. They're always spiky shapes like triangles and stars and things, and colours are always making that they want to get rid of, but they'll say they're holding it in a certain part of the body. A lot of the time it's the stomach, chest, whatever, but it can be anywhere, and it'll actually be living in there when they move it. It's palpable when you're in the room with them when they do it. We've never really had much of an opportunity to do it with a whole group of people like we did the other week, and I didn't really know if it'd work because it's quite personal, but we did do it, and there was an energy shift and with everyone. Them lads are locked up in that, and they were prepared to do anything. You said today they were in touch with you asking for the sheets.
The techniques.
We actually
so we've basically been into it. A good friend of mine, he's away, isn't he? And I think, how did we end up in there? I had I think it was one of the prison officers followed me on Instagram, and someone got mentioned. One of the lads like, oh, that's Gary's mate. So the next thing I know, I'm in HMP A Barron. I've been in there doing a few workshops with the lads and speaking to them a lot about this stuff and stuff what you put me onto and stuff I've studied myself, and we got to go in there, didn't we? We've been in it twice now.
Twice, yeah.
But to see them so open, as we saying, over the shift and the way people are changing now, we had like 15, 20 men twice, haven't we, in a room, open to these kind of conversations. We can see light bulbs going off everywhere when you're saying certain things, why we behave the way we behave, how we download our environment, and in some ways become disaligned with actually who we are, and that's how we end up committing crime or making mistakes, or because we kind of off our path and making the wrong decisions, you could say, and then end up in places like
what I noticed, like what it meant more than anything about that was, I see, like, and we all feel that the collective consciousness is changing rapidly now. That's why a lot of people are uncomfortable. They feel out of sync, and these people everywhere.
Confusion. There's a lot of confusion, isn't there?
But on a positive angle, I've noticed that people are really open to change, and you wouldn't think that these rough and ready lads would be that open to it, but they are. They're reaching out and asking, what is it?
Well, they're doing breathwork with us, aren't they? They're doing breathwork techniques. They're doing the EFT, what you're obviously teaching them, and you can just see they're really like engaging in the conversations, what we're having. And
but you know what stuck out for me was that both times, the staff, because you have to have staff obviously in the room, they were as interested and they were engaging in it, even though their job was just to be there, really. And obviously, they've reached out, and we even spoke to like the governor, and that he was fascinated with it, and the deputy governor was like, I've never seen these lads like this, and they want to know more and more about it, because obviously it makes their life easier. But what I noticed was there was no sort of, when we were in that room, the lads and the staff, some of them get on anyway, don't get me wrong, but they were all sort of on the one page. They were just like, we were in a room full of human beings, not like staff and prisoners, do you know what I mean? And it really hit home to me that, you know, everyone is in the same place. Everyone wants to know why they feel like they feel, because things are changing rapidly. And, you know, it is fun with sport and stuff, but then the real work is really to be done now, because everyone's making the right noises. And I'm not on social media, but I do look at it now and again, and people are like putting the show reels out and stuff. But really, you can see that there's a lot of pain there as well.
Yeah.
Some people have got it, but a lot of people are just making the right noises and, you know, putting the right pictures out there. But you can feel like the more and more you do this work, like you sense it, that there's a lot of confusion, you know. And like the time is now. There's loads of fun stuff as well. You know, the sport is fun. We've touched on that, but there's real work to be done, isn't it? Yeah. And I spoke, like, I done like a coach's development program thing with HeartMath, which is another thing that I do. We haven't touched on that, but maybe another time. But one thing that Howard Martin's, one of the founders of HeartMath in the States, said, what I mentioned to you yesterday, is but actually, whatever action we take and whatever we do and whatever we get out there, and even bits like this and, you know, work that you're doing in the schools and anything that you can put into the field. He literally said last night that you are putting it into the field, and it's there for people. It's not invisible. And even if they don't see it, the frequency's getting changed, and it's becoming more and more comfortable then for people, where, you know, it is important that people do stuff and put stuff into the field.
Yeah. Even as an individual, isn't it?
Because you know, some people will be dragged kicking and screaming into it in the end, but the trailblazers that are out there now doing it, they're the ones who are doing the work. And, you know, it's an amazing time, and it's a scary time in the same breath, because there's a lot of people who are confused, you know.
A lot of uncertainty.
I think what you're doing is really important with the schools, because you're getting them at an early age before they fully develop the worldview. Because, you know, in psychology, you normally put your worldview together 0 to 7 years old. When
you say your worldview, do you want to just explain what?
Your psychologist will say that your worldview, or your writing on the walls, they have different terminologies, but they're the main two. They're how you basically live the rest of your life. You're just playing on loop, based on them set of values, and they normally download it from whoever's around you when you're growing up. Normally your parents, but your aunties, uncles, teachers.
Yeah. So what's basically what Brian's saying, again, something what I speak about, and it was you actually taught me in the first place, is in the first 7 years you create a view of how the world works, and we do this, don't we, to learn how to function in society and basically to survive. That's our primitive, what's in our DNA, isn't it, to learn how to survive and how to operate in a world where we were speaking before about the lower brain frequencies, or the different brain frequencies, like the first 7 years of your life you're in a brain frequency delta and theta, which is like hypnosis. So we're actually designed that way, aren't we, to download and absorb our environments, because there's so much to learn. It'd be impossible to try and learn everything, obviously from teachers or from the environment. What you're in actually creates a personality, doesn't it? As you get older, it becomes an ego, you could say, or a false self.
When we had the group like meetings before the lockdown, and we do one every couple of weeks, the 3% meetings, I always used to use an analogy, and the lads loved it, and it was that because they all had kids, they all have got kids. And I remember saying that, you know, when you've got a toddler, if he's 2 years old, say, he thinks he's Superman. That's why kids run around thinking they can do anything. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as they're safe. But if your like child climbs on top of a wardrobe and goes, I'm Superman, I'm going to dive off on the rock hard floor, you grab him in that moment, he can download 2 different parts of his worldview. If you go, oh, don't do that because you'll fall and break your legs and you go to hospital and I'll be sad, and your mum will be sad and everything, he downloads, that's a little bit dangerous, that, and his world gets smaller. If you grab him and distract him and go, don't do that yet, mate, jump onto the bed or whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you distract him.
Or you help him.
Yeah.
Go on, I'll carry you through the air.
He retains a little bit of that boldness Because Goethe, he says, or Goethe, whichever way you want to, philosopher, used to say that children have boldness and magic in them. And when we do things like that, when we say, no, don't do that, because this, that, the other, we take away from them. So it's crucial.
Another example I like to use in relation to that is when, like, and again, everyone will relate to this, you take your kids, you always say to yours, but it's Smith's now, isn't it? Like, you've got a 4 or a 5-year-old, and they're like, Mum, Dad, I want that. Like, the worst thing you can say to them, I know people say this, you know, with the best intentions, but they go, fucking hell, you can't have that, £15-20 for that. You can't have that, son, that's too expensive. And they download that belief then, that, like, that kind of lack mentality, that it's normal to not be able to afford or to buy things, and that becomes part of their program, which, as you were saying before, you create your worldview in the first 7 years, and that runs right the way through, doesn't it?
It's quite sad, really, because you play that on loop. And, and like, words are frequencies, so, you know, they go right into your frequency and affect you in that way. But also touches and that as well, and, like, a scientist, I can't remember who it was, said once that if you're crossing your children across the road when they're small, if you squeeze their hand too tight because you're frightened of the road yourself, they download from you directly. It's a dangerous place, and then they become more fearful. That's the fear that kills them, really. Because if you think about it, if you're fearful or you download fear when you're a child, you stop trying then, because you go, I'm not going to do that because that's frightening, or I'm not gonna stand up and read in front of all the other kids, because your world literally gets smaller and smaller and smaller, until in the end you don't try anymore. And the sad thing is, they're all born bold. We're all born with the biological imperative. You know, if you see a litter of pups round one bowl of food, they're literally pushing each other out the way and all that. And people go, they're greedy little so-and-so, but really they're programmed to survive and prosper, and we are. And when we get that taken away, because we're not like any other mammal, because we've got choice. You can choose not to try if you download that, and then they're the people you see when they're adults.
It's like you get people who go to school and university and get all the qualifications and come out and end up working in, like, a job on minimum wage, isn't it?
And there's always a pattern plays out, like, they'll get so far and then fall backwards because it's not a whole belief.
Not in their paradigm, is it? Their paradigm or their standard, so to say, is there, and they've got all the knowledge and information to basically go to there, but it's their own belief of what they're capable of, what keeps them, like, this creates a ceiling for them, doesn't it?
Like when people win the lottery, if it's not like part of their core belief that it's okay to have all that, they just go through it.
They get rid of it.
Them just get rid of it because it doesn't stick to them, because it's not their frequency.
It's like a form of self-sabotage, isn't it?
It's just a different frequency that they're on. It can never be that way, and that's why that happens, you know.
So what type of work would you do then to help people? As you know, you'll come across a lot of people who are kind of getting in their own way. You know, what would you say is the best type of work to do with them to try and...
The answer is, like, lots of different things over the years. I've just, like, got little bits of this and little bits of that work, and stick them in, like, a toolbox, if you like. So hypnotherapy, EFT, heart math, all these things are like little tools that you can use. But I always say you can't go forwards unless you go backwards, so you've literally got to go back. You know, paper over the cracks and motivate people and get them right up there, but they'll always fall back down. If you don't find out what it is that is in their worldview, or what it is that they've downloaded, that, you know, they can't do this or they can't do that. You've got to go backwards to find that.
Could you give any examples of stuff from yourself that you've kind of became aware of as you got older and you've had to fix?
Yeah, well, like, when I was younger, I can remember, like, little things that might be silly, like being out in the street and the ice cream man comes and you don't get one because your mum and dad are out, or they haven't got any money, or blah, 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 or they don't want you to have one for whatever reason. And you see all the other kids and you've stopped playing football and you haven't got an ice cream or a lolly, ice lolly, some people call it.
Yeah, so is this isn't like something you've experienced?
Yeah,
or something?
Yes, I remember seeing it and going, that I must have downloaded in that moment. I'm not as good as them, or I don't deserve one, or whatever. In that moment, that can be very powerful. And I can remember that pattern playing out in 20s, you know, and starting to be aware of it. The more I studied, and then you have to go backwards and squash that. Otherwise, that one little thing can be the difference between having and not having. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's plenty of examples, and I've seen loads of people who, you know, have experienced similar, or I've seen like kids who was at school with like brothers, both really good at football, picked by professional clubs and that, and then I remember one lad started saying, "You're not as good as him." You see the other one sink, and he goes into, you know, the lower leagues and all that, and that's all because he took ownership, because whatever your dad said is normally gospel, you know what I mean? And I've seen that. He's literally the manifestation of that message. Because unless you've got power over yourself, and you really, most kids at that age, they go by what they're being told. Because even though you wear views 0 to 7 years old, kids you see from 7 to 14, you can still tweak it. You know what I mean? It's not like solid until you're 14. Science seems to have dug that out not that long ago. So they're crucial years in your life, right up to 14. You get your own identity, and you become the manifestation of your own message, like we say. Yeah. Everyone says it. Not many people really know how powerful.
People basically become a victim to the story, what they tell themselves about, you know, what they're capable of and who they are.
Yeah, if you go back to like sports, and that's some of the greatest sports, people probably never ever got to where they could have been because they had limiting beliefs.
I've experienced it myself, haven't I? It's a big part of, obviously, the reason why I'm in the schools with the kids is to teach them basically they don't have to believe everything what they hear and what they see and what people tell them. And because people are quick-handed, they're obviously stress and put their limitations and their own experiences onto the kids. And as I say, a lot of the time it can come from a place of love, want to protect them, or but that can be down to experience which you've hurt them. Maybe in you know in their own life. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I always used to say to you that I thought I was into it, obviously because I'm from a different space and time. But you know, I thought like with the like sport, I thought like I was too early for me because people weren't as open. If you started in sport now, which I haven't got the inclination to do, I think you can do massive things if people are more open to it, and the sports psychologists and coaches and stuff right across every sport now.
Well, they're actually part of people's camps now, aren't they? Just as important as your technical, your striking coaches, your wrestling coaches, people have got a mindset coach. Even breathing now is a big one. People are starting to get actual breathwork coaches. I didn't know how to. I spent my whole career not knowing how to breathe. Even when I've watched tapes back or videos of my own fights and I'm listening to my breathing patterns, I didn't know how to breathe. See how big and how big of a thing and how valuable would it be, or is it to understand and know how to breathe correctly?
Yes, massive.
You know,
I was watching like the World Cup recently, and with sport, in particular football, I love football, and Harry Kane missed a penalty the other week.
Yeah.
And I know you could do this a lot as well. I watch things and I'll say, is whoever I'm watching it with, he's going to miss. You can see it. You can tell by his body language, you can tell by his facial expression, you can tell by everything. And really, if he takes 100 penalties in training, he's going to score 99, probably. Because there's no applied pressure, but because of the pressure on him in that situation, the way the mind works out is, he gets a compromised signal, so the signal splits in two. You've heard the expression, I was in
when you say signal, the signal goes from
the motor cortex region in your brain that makes the decision of exactly what you're going to do. You see it with golfers a lot, but what you can see what happened with him the other week is the signal that normally fires perfectly from that region of his brain that creates movement
in the body,
motor cortex, it splits in two. So if you get a signal that splits in two, you get a fuzzy action. You don't get one thing or the other. So
compromised.
Yeah, and in the exact moment that he makes contact with that ball, he's in two minds. And you know what the Germans are like? People used to say, why did Germany always beat England and other teams and that on penalties? Years ago, their coaches would tell them which way to go. And the reason he done it is say, in that moment, if you miss, it's my fault. Well, he didn't really miss because they took the pressure off. Do you know what I mean? That's massive when you see that, and especially in football. It's massive in golf because you use all the major muscle groups to drive, and then when you get right down to putting the ball, you're using a little fast twitch muscle fibres. And we were talking about it the other week when I said I was working with golfers. I'd say, take your club everywhere, especially your putter, because you're an animate object that's inanimate, but it's still made of the same subatomic particles energy and everything as you are, and you create resonance. And in the end, it's like you're touching the ball with your fingers.
Your golf club becomes, we're having this conversation, maybe actually becomes an extension of your arm.
Yeah. And the more you spend time with it, and just even if you picked it up now and again, thought, this is an amazing thing. No wonder who invented this club, and no wonder who designed this exact one. And you're creating resonance with that thing.
Yeah. Like the Brazilians with the footballs.
Yeah. That's why the South Americans are so good. Argentina's still in the World Cup. Brazil are brilliant. They're literally from when the kids, I watched the documentary where the kids picked the ball and go, I love the ball, it's my friend. He's creating resonance. He's animate, that's inanimate. But he's creating a resonance with that thing, but it becomes an extension of himself. And we would talk about religion at the beginning. They're very religious Brazilians, but they actually believe that they're the best in the world, and it's a powerful thing. And they believe God's on their side and everything. Can imagine how powerful that is. Because again, it's just a frequency. They're bringing that frequency through. But I think now in sport, there's obviously lots more people that are into the mind stuff and they understand it more. I think it's like the time now to, for people to really look.
Yeah.
If you look at going back to Alex Honnold, the way he applies himself, if people apply themselves like that, they never.
But even coming away from sport and looking at obviously what's put you where you are now, it's through your own experience, your own suffering, you could say, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Which obviously led you to want to heal and understand more about the way we behave and how we think, and what are the causes of the depression or the anxiety or the sadness. And I think that's a big thing for people. Like for me, that's why these conversations are so valuable.
Yeah.
Like obviously the information stuff what you've given me over the years, I can't put into words how much I appreciate it. Even going to Brazil and obviously coaching from Colin, the people who've had around me, the time I felt the most, I've actually felt that the only way I can describe it is being in Brazil or someone giving you time and it's a form of love. It is a form of, like, I know through going in, working with the kids in the schools, the attention what you're giving them, like you can see you have this like a real strong connection with them. Do you know what I mean? And like, I remember going to Brazil, being over there, I fell in love with fighting pretty much overnight, but going there and not really knowing anything, being physically strong and everything else, but not knowing nothing and getting absolutely battered in the gym every day. But eventually they started to, submitting me and choking me, but then teaching me how they done it and how to escape it. And I remember that real, like, and also doing sharing information the same as what we're doing right now, but feeling that, like, this information, what these are giving to me, is going to make me better. Like conversations like this and through your own experience, that information, what you're sharing with people, is actually there to heal and to help people, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out as well, or mentioning that anyone who's watching this, who suffer from depression and anxiety, both or one or the other, they are creative people, the most creative people out there. And all it is energy flowing around your body and your mind. And it needs to be channeled into something. And if when you channel it into something, that moves that energy and it's not stagnating in your body.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that you are really creative. You've got all this energy. If you're not creative, you can't really get depressed because you're closed down anyway and you haven't got all them emotions. They're all creative emotions that are misplaced and misunderstood in you that cause that. So when you understand that and then you move that energy and you feed it into something, it's the most powerful energy you can get. And I think that's a gift to give people to say, study that and understand that.
Would you say that because there's so much going on now in the world? Like, obviously we're not designed genetically And as human beings, we're not designed to have all this information, all these so many different things going on now. As I say, between social media, the stuff what's on the news, just trying to survive in your day-to-day life. There's so many different things going on, isn't there?
Yeah, what I notice is most people move forward faster to stay in front of it because they don't want to be in it because that's uncomfortable. But the only way you can get through it is to be in it, whatever it is. People will buy themselves nicer things to who are a bit down and will think, that makes me feel better, but that might last a day. You buy yourself dearer and dearer stuff and, you're trying to self-medicate with making yourself feel better, but that's all external. And all the time, like we won't have time to speak about it today, but you have a heart, and your heart has ancient knowledge. It knows everything. And we know now, we haven't touched on this, that your heart has neurons, at least 50,000 neurons, thinking neurons, and your heart feeds more information to your brain than your brain feeds to your heart. And all the time, in my studies, what I've realised is your heart is trying to give you what you want. It's literally there going, listen to me, I won't let you down, but we're moving faster away from it because we want all the external things and we want to self-medicate. And really, as you know, like these breathing techniques that you do and the meditation that everyone's into, and they're the only times that you can connect. And I'm like a heart mat coach, and heart mat's taken off now, and it's an amazing way to connect with your heart, and it makes you more resilient and stuff, and it makes you deeper, and you get all kinds of...
When you say neurons, basically what you're saying is there's a heart in your brain, isn't there?
The thinking, yeah.
But your logic mind can't get in the way of that heart, so that kind of knows where to go, and then your logic kicks in and goes, no, go that way or go that way, and sends a different signal.
Well, your heart,
that's how we end up making mistakes.
Well, your heart will never steer in the wrong place, it's just there. A lot of the time people go right through the life without ever connecting with it. You get these really deep moments when you connect with your heart. We've done it. Don't know if the last time or the time before, we literally just put your hand on your heart to connect. Where attention goes, energy flows, as they say. And you see people change straight away. And we ask them to appreciate that your heart can beat 100,000 times a day on average. We just take it for granted, and it's always there. And it develops before the brain and the fetus. It's there. It's the most powerful part of us, our subconscious mind. And the heart are deeply connected, and everything that you ever want is in there, and you've got to stop moving forward and moving away from it. All the stuff.
Escaping it, you mean?
Because your heart will say, this is what you really want, and when you were born, this is the only thing that would ever make you happy. But most of the time, we're ahead going, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, but that's where when we say over like the worldview and things, we attach to information, ideas, we download what everyone says around us, whatever we see, hear, smell, taste, touching.
People are
as you say, we just lose our power and become more disaligned with actually who we are in our heart, isn't it? So, and that is, for me, a major cause of depression and sadness and anxiety. As you say, the kids I'm with are 13 to 15, and a lot of them are, they consider them the kids who misbehave, or I just see like young kids who've either experienced trauma and stuff like that, or they've had it hard growing up, they've been through different experiences, negative. But at the same time, I see loads of young creative entrepreneurs who just don't fall into that, that schooling system of
it's that fear again, because...
And it's exactly what you're saying, isn't it? That they've just got all this energy and they haven't got the right thing to channel it into, and that's why they end up misbehaving.
And all kids are born with love, and they move away from it through fear. So that's becomes violence and aggression and stuff. But really, every human being, all they ever wants is love. If you break it all down, you just want love and to be peaceful. They want to be in that place. It's so addictive. But the ego doesn't want us to be there. But I think we're moving, obviously, rapidly now towards that. And people are prepared to drop everything, if you like, and be in that world. Because it's scary.
People's values are changing, you mean?
Yeah. But it's frightening as well, because people are like, what if I start wearing
I think people in general are scared of anything, like the unknown, change. We say, don't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to be very bold to embrace change. You have to be very bold to follow through with it, because, we all wear the same stuff, and And like people will be thinking, well, what if I start wearing all Matthew B stuff and all that, you know,
Yeah.
like them things that take you out of your comfort zone. So you have to be very, very bold to do it, but because the collective consciousness is changing it rapidly now, people are going.
I think there's been a big
it.
movement in Liverpool, hasn't there, over the years? And we say, don't we? Obviously, Liverpool's a special place.
Yeah,
Not just saying that because it's from where I'm from, but
yeah,
you know, and again, I'm not.
trailblazers, aren't they? In
Yeah,
Liverpool,
basically, yeah.
Without
Yeah.
bigging it up, and people are watching this from different places. It's there for everyone, but you sort of like feel things more. I don't know. It's like a different frequency. You go out of town and you can like, the more you can adapt to feeling frequency and that, you go, this isn't.
Yeah, it's like you could be in Orlando, Florida, couldn't you, with the
Yeah.
kids, and you just know. You wouldn't even have to see them. You just know these are Scouser over there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, everyone talks to each other and that, don't they? I remember being in London once in Walthamstow and parked my car up, needed to find somewhere, and I asked this couple, and the woman was going to tell me where I needed to go, but the man just went, no, just keep walking. Like, you don't speak to no one, do you know what I mean? And I think, like, it's not just it's like a northern thing, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, Manchester's very similar, isn't it?
So, but yeah, it is happening rapidly, and it's happening in Liverpool.
Yeah, if it's going to happen anyway, it's going to be here, isn't it?
Like anything.
Where do you see it? I think to the future, 5 years, 10 years from now. What do you think that's going to look like?
I think, like I said, we're moving really quickly now. I think it's going to look completely different.
I was watching something probably about 6 months ago, and you were saying in the next 4 to 5 years, there's going to be more advancements in technology than there's been in the last fucking 1,000 years altogether.
Yeah.
And you think, like, if you were to say 10, 15 years ago, you'd be floating around on an electric board and electric cars, and you know, it's only a matter of time before these flying cars. And
But we've always had the capacity to be past that technology as human beings. We can communicate with each other without speaking.
Yeah, I'm not a conspiracist in any way, but there's definitely an element of things and information being suppressed to a certain point, isn't it? I think now, obviously, because the way technology is, YouTube and things like that, there's a lot of stuff getting said and a lot of stuff going on, which you can't really get away from it now, can you? They can't.
No, we've like practiced it, haven't we? We've had like 30 lads at one point in the 3% meetings, and we'll practice ESP and that. And it'll work, and they love it. And, you know, I'll have wrote something down before anyone gets there, and at the end of it, we make it a bit more scientific. We will have a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Got to be a glass bottle of water in it. Water boosts the signal, because we're 80% water. And I would write something down on a bit of card, put a tight elastic band around it, and that'd be there. And I'd play a certain frequency through a speaker, as you know, to boost it, and then we'd ask. And 4 or 5 people could come, just go, is it this? It can be something, the most random word with an image. People will get both things and go, is it this picture and that word? And that's where we are now, people, they're just ordinary lads.
Touching on the 3%, and I might as well talk about that for a little minute. So, about 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
About 4 years ago, would you say?
Yeah.
We set up a group, which is obviously the 3% podcast, and I had a bit of an idea to get a group of lads together. We're all kind of had similar beliefs, we're open-minded, I'd say.
Yeah.
A lot of them entrepreneurial and in general, just really fucking good lads. We formed a group, didn't we, and tried some of like the different experiments.
Yeah.
Like one of them's like we speak about biocommunication, everything's connected, those plants, everything can. We done a crest experiment, didn't we? So we got 2 pots, a good pot and a bad pot, and we put 16 seeds in each pot. Say it was, I can't remember how many, but the same amount in each pot, same window ledge, same supply of water every day. And we used to put one of them, didn't we? And we still got it to this day, a WhatsApp group. And we'd 5 pictures of the good plant that we used to call like the sexiest crest plant, the best looking. We make jokes over it, wouldn't we? And like people are going to think I'm a plant pot talking about this, but we basically used these experiments, which is science, didn't we, to prove to the lads and the men in the group that this thing's actually real. And what we done, I can put pictures on actually, which I'm going to do. I'll get Passion to put some pictures of the the experiment what we done on this podcast, so you can see it for yourselves. But basically, we sent love and positive intentions to one plant and we ignored the other, didn't we? And we done it for maybe a couple of weeks. There's actually a timeline on the photos what I've still got on my favourites on my phone. And you can show the two plants and, you know, I won't say what the difference in the plants was. I'll show everyone a picture of what the plants were like. And this was an experiment, what everyone bought into, but it was actually proof, wasn't it? That
it was like power of 30 odd people sending the intention. It was an intention experiment, really. And but we've seen that in Quantech in Germany. Can do that en masse with they'll have like farmers' fields where they're growing something. And there'll be ticks and bugs. And they'll do intentions, but they'll do it mechanically as well through computers.
Send the frequency through machines.
Send the frequency where these bugs can't exist. And they'll also put an intention out there that you need to go somewhere else. And the whole field is just clear. That's where the science is now with it, you know. When they've done that one where they put little tiny probes on a plant similar to that, and they'll plug the kettle in and switch it on with the intention of pouring boiling water on the plant, and the plant will register stress.
It knows.
And the graph will move and say, it's basically saying, don't do that. Do you know what I mean? And then when the intention changes and you go, no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to water you normal with normal cool water.
The plant relaxes.
And the plant relaxes. So that's biocommunication. We're connected to everything. And there's no limit to what you can do with that. That's you know, 30 odd lads from Liverpool sat in a room and done it, and it worked. So we stopped, the lockdown stopped us from doing the water. We were going to change the pH balance of water. Through intention, and then we want to freeze it. And the crystallisation is completely different in the two waters, the one that's being sent positive and negative.
Well, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to leave that one and we'll do that experiment and use it as an example, because this won't be the last time, that you come on the podcast, because as I say, the whole intention behind the podcast is to share information which helps and inspires people. And for me, mate, you've been a massive inspiration and literally changed the whole direction in what my life was going. That's why I speak about you so much. Obviously, I absolutely love you, like in my family, and to have you on here, I need to set an Instagram up. All the people who are probably going to bombard me after watching this saying, how do we get hold of Brian? We'll set an Instagram up and things like that, get you on social media.
He sends it to a plant.
I think we'll end it on there for today, mate. There's always a couple of questions what I like to ask people before they finish. But without overthinking it, what's happiness mean to Brian?
Just being, I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but just being in the moment and not thinking about last week or next week. I think that's the only place you can get as a human being, to be happy. Anything else just causes you stress and anxiety.
Success then? What's success?
Just surviving, really. When I say surviving, just being a human being and making sense of it. And because it is a conundrum. That's where most people won't admit it, but it's not easy being human. From when you're born, you first become aware of who you are, or who you think you are. You're really successful if you can get to a place where you can exist peacefully.
Which means you've got to find yourself again, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of us get lost, don't we?
Without any conflict in the mind, if you're in that place, you're the most successful person.
Last one then, mate. What's your favourite quote? I'm sure you'll have it.
Do you know what? Because I reminded myself tonight about the first book I ever read, Shirley MacLaine. It would be the quote from the beginning of that book, and it's to get to the fruit on the tree. Sometimes you've got to go out on a limb. And it basically means, you know, you have to stretch to get to where you want to be and to get the best fruit. And that always resonates with me, that. I know many more, but that, because obviously that book has just come into my mind a bit. After the
We're going to keep stretching, aren't we?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.